Perfect. Well, hello, friends and fellow gamers. As mentioned, my name is TempestMask1000. Some of you know me as Steve. And yeah, we're going to be doing a little bit of some fun times with some Mega Mans. Heck yeah. So this game actually means quite a bit to me. This is Mega Man Xtreme 2, also known in Japan as Rockman X2 Soul Racer. This was released in 2001 for the Game Boy Color, and came out before Mega Man X6, so if you're familiar with that, and you might not heard about this, I do not blame you, because a lot of people tend to think this is a ROM hack, but no, this is an official Capcom product, made by Capcom themselves this time around, as compared to their subsidiary of Minakuchi Engineering, which was actually the folks responsible for developing the Mega Man classic Game Boy games. Well, except for 2, because apparently 2 is a bit of a special case. But, you know what, I like special cases, and I also like this game a lot. Before I showcase the run, though, we gotta talk about a couple of options. So right here is the select button functionality, and then we also got rapid fire and auto charge. Auto charge is off, rapid fire is on, and scramble change is the setting of the select button. You can also change it to weapon change, but that only applies to X, and I don't really need that for this particular category. This is going to be Mega Man, or rather, this is going to be any percent extreme, and this utilizes the extreme mode, which gives us access to all 8 Mavericks of the game. We have the ability to swap between characters from the get-go, between X and 0, and most importantly, it allows us to access an extra little stage within the late game, but any percent extreme as compared to extreme no credits warp is a little bit special nowadays, because ever since Focus Sight, one of my good pals and a world record holder of the 100% extreme category, found this rather interesting thing that nobody could have expected in the Japanese version of the game, we did a little category separation. You'll get to see what that means once we get to the end of the game, but for now, we have to play the game, so... Alright. Let's get this thing started, shall we? And I would, of course, like the host to have the honor of counting me down.
I muted my mic.
If you would like to start me off from 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Alright, so we are off and ready to roll. Alright, so Mega Man Xtreme 2, like I said, this came out for Game Boy Color in '01, and this game is also officially canonical to the X timeline. The reason for this is because X6 later on did make a mention to it in a very specific cutscene of the game, which happens to be what happens if you beat High Max in Gates Fortress as X. A task easier said than done, unfortunately, but yeah, all things considered, we have, or actually I believe it's, you have to defeat Gate as X, or something like that, but yeah, way more easier said than done, and also that was a very weird pause frame, that's never happened before. Alright, let's just ignore that and move onward. So, of course, one of the things about this game is that it can be pretty hard to find, so no doubt I am emulating this via Gambate, which is one of the which is one of the confirmed, that's one of the verified emulators that the Mega Man speedrunning community does allow. So, anyone that would like to try this game out, or any Game Boy Color or Game Boy related, no, Game Boy Color rather, excuse me, Mega Man game is more than welcome to do so via this way. But, of course, there's also things like the Game Boy Player, or even just any kind of specialized hardware that can do original hardware or whatnot that should work for you just fine. But, anyway, that was Skullhead. I like to call him Mega Skeletor because He-Man's main villain undergoing Pokemon Mega Evolution, I guess. It's just kind of like a tradition where if you listen to some GDQ runs of Mega Man X3, and you hear folks call Mao the Giant, Mr. Fisty McGee or something like that, I decided to take that with me, except apply it here to the intro boss of this game, because I just thought it'd be funny. I seem to be the only one that does it. Well, okay, I guess Rose Zorn also likes to make the nod to it as well, but yeah. Anyway, we got a lot of text going on right now, and of course one of the benefits of running the Japanese version of this game is that scrolling through it is much faster. The worldwide version is a little bit slower, at least by close to a minute, if not beyond a minute in total. And the reason is you can't skip text. So that's just how Game Boy games were back in the day, or Game Boy Color games, and it's kind of weird too, though, because I know for a fact there was at least one skippable cutscene in Mega Man 5 for Game Boy, but I guess developers were pretty selective about that, so let's just go ahead and switch on over into the Wire Sponge stage, and you also saw me enter the parts shop for a brief moment to utilize something called DNA Souls to purchase a part called Saber Plus One. So this is the first time that I'm playing as Zero, and the reason for that is because Skullhead actually takes a little more time when you fight him as Zero, and unfortunately, too, hitting him with the Saber also counts as the equivalent to hitting him with a charge shot as X, which causes him iframes, which is also presented by the entire screen flashing because apparently developers did not quite get the memo that some people have sensitive eyes, which is a bit of a shame. So, I will say this much, the fact that we are doing the credits skip here does mean we get to skip the worst of the flashing within the game, but if by any means you are a bit concerned about your health, if you are prone to flashing lights or anything like that, then you are more than welcome to tune away. That said, we are currently getting through the stage as Zero mostly because for one, he has a built-in air dash, which I can activate by pressing jump again while in midair, and it makes him just a little bit more mobile. Of course, throwing in the Saber Plus One part also makes him do a little more damage than X now, so that, of course, is also helpful, especially when combined with his jump slashes. But first, we gotta get past Wire Sponge Bob. Me boyo. Anyway, so he likes to go angry when he's at a desperation phase. I want him to go upward like that, and hopefully we can get it done. Ooh, that might not be good, though. I think he's going to... I should have tried to slash him a bit more. Let's see if I can at least dodge this. Okay, he's gonna do it again, unfortunately. That was really hard to avoid. I knew a death was coming, but I would have been so happy if I clutched that one out. You know what? This is perfectly fine. If anything, he is usually the reason why we go first. That sort of time lost is why we just bother with him. And also just the fact that he has a weapon, or rather a technique in Zero's case, that will be especially helpful for cheesing the game as we go along. But for now, I have to take care of him, and that was very lucky on my part, RNG-wise, and he is done so. Alright, so, cutting this fella into shreds will net us the lightning technique. And Zero has two different types of techniques within his arsenal. The first of which is something that you need to input by going into the menu. And sometimes there's a condition for this that involves whether he is on the ground, in the air, something like that, or something to that caliber. By the way, I'm going to get a quick other part right here, and that I will talk about very soon. But for now, we are going into Tunnel Rhino stage. The other type of technique that Zero has going for him is something that's done by a button input. So whether I'm holding a direction and pressing attack, something like that, to that effect, yeah. And that's actually what we're going to be getting. We're going to be getting our first of that type right here. But for now, what I've collected is lightning, and the reason I need that is because there are a couple of blocks in this stage that need lightning to be destroyed, otherwise it will not open up, and that's especially no good because Zero's best technique is located behind those blocks. For some interesting reason, Dr. Light has made not only capsules for X in this game, but Zero as well, and we're not quite sure why, because for those that are unaware, Zero is not a Dr. Light creation, whereas X is. And yet, you'd be kind of surprised if you didn't know the lore by now, but might know classic lore as to who did make him. I won't spoil it, obviously. I do highly recommend that if anybody wants to check out the Mega Man X games, they indeed do so. After all, they're some of my favorite Mega Man games around, and this one especially. But we just got Zero's arm upgrade, which is going to net him the Zero final weapon. This is especially handy because it does the most damage to bosses that Zero can deal, and unfortunately, because of that, it also costs the most energy to utilize. And by the way, that was a very interesting little trick right there. I guess you could say that sometimes there are those moments where the camera likes to scroll when I've collected a health pickup. That doesn't usually happen a whole lot, so it's nice to see because with my character still in motion, it does not waste time at all. Of course, it would be nice if the game didn't have any sort of stopping frames whenever I pick up items like those in general, kind of like Mega Man 11 or Mega Man fan games or even Mega Man for Game Gear, if you believe it. But not much we can do about that, so that was at least a very lucky happening right there. A very random one at that, and I wouldn't necessarily say that's never happened before. It certainly has, it's just not common. So I just equipped the energy saver, and this will now change the amount of energy I waste in half, or rather it'll cut it down. And this is especially good because now I get to do 2 Zero finals. And this strategy you're going to see me do right here is going to... Oh man, he's actually using his extra attack. Let's see if I can pull this. Oh, dang, that's going to be unfortunate then. Okay, so there are 2 ways I could handle this. I could either do a soft reset, or I could continue the fight. I think I will continue the fight because soft resetting will require me to have to get back to the boss chamber. Soft resetting is allowed because what that does is it lets you go to the continue screen, and this game does have a battery within the cartridge which allows for some auto-saving to occur. And so we, the runners of this game, are perfectly fine with that. Of course, that will cause just a little bit of time loss once again, and I guess I'm a little bit unlucky with bosses today, but you know what, we're just going to move on and have some fun with this one. And with that, we now have the Drill Crush. This is also going to help Zero get a little handy upgrade in Blast Hornet stage, something I don't really need to get, but I still will, just for the sake of safety. But Drill Crush is also a very handy technique. It's pretty powerful, it does not cost any energy to use, and yeah, it's just good stuff. But overall, we're going to now move into... I'm not sure why I thought I needed to go into the... I'm not sure why I needed to go into the part shop right there. A good thing I didn't. We're going to now move into Volt Catfish's stage, and we are going to collect our one and only upgrade for X. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I need to get X armor if Zero is already pretty powerful on his own? Well, as it would happen, I do want to do a couple of things as X within the game. See, he does have a purpose, especially later on if you were to fight the true final boss, but for now, he's just our companion, you know, he's the main protagonist of the series, he deserves a little bit of love, and by getting him his leg parts, he's also going to gain the ability to air dash just like Zero can, with the added bonus of doing it upward as well. It's slower than the horizontal air dashes, but it's especially necessary for a particular stage of his in the late game, which hopefully I will aim to get this time, because the last time I ran this category, I accidentally went into a special stage that involves Zero. Not necessarily the fastest around, but it still worked out, thankfully, and I did get to show something rather rare that I would otherwise only be presenting to a marathon if I were doing Zero mission. But now we got his air shoes. I'm going to be using X for a good little while to negate damage that Zero would otherwise be taking. And also, that upward air dash was a nice little way to skip the water wave at that particular section, which otherwise would try to just push me into the spikes. But from here on out, as of that room that I just exited, and from there onward, water waves will cause instant kill damage. The reason for this is that they're supposedly filled with electricity, and that's evidenced by the little yellow flashing that you can see right there, which the previous waves did not have. But now I'm going to also do a nice little trick where if I do a character swap closer to the top of the screen and the camera is not scrolling vertically, the transition between characters will happen much faster. It's really nice to keep in mind because, of course, small time saves where they count are nice and good. Alright, so he wants to start with a jump, and he's going to use that attack, which is probably his most annoying. Both Catfish, without his weakness, is especially a rough boss. I'm actually going to just finish him because I used a little too many jump slashes instead of the Zero final, so I just figured, you know what, we'll just go for that. Now, if you were to fight him in X mission and you have his weakness, well, let's just say the result is probably my favorite boss fight of the bunch, and that right there was actually a nice little phenomenon called fast text. In the weapon get screen, you can't scroll the text to go faster, but there is an odd occasion where we can get it to do so, but we do not quite know why definitively. And some speculations point out to buffered inputs by the time the boss fight ends, such as if you've been taking damage or whatever, but I wouldn't necessarily count on that just yet. But it's something we've known for a while, we just never really figured it out, and sadly any TASes of the game haven't quite figured it out either. But let me tell you, Motherias and I forget the other fella's name, the people that did author a TAS of Xtreme 100% did a fantastic job and is well worth the watch on YouTube if you got the time for it. So that was a bit of a section skip. Normally you don't go onto the airship portion that way, the way I just did. You're supposed to go through a few more spycopters rather, and do just a bit more platforming, but by utilizing the air dash from X, it's just an easy thing to do. Technically, Zero's own dashing can also allow him to skip that, but it's harder. It's sure enough harder. So it's one of the reasons why we get X's leg parts, but like I said too, it's also mandatory for something that I'll be using X specifically for. Alright, so this game does not have a whole lot of mini-bosses. There's only 2 Maverick stages that do, and this is one of them. This is the Blinker Wall, as Rose Zorn and I like to call, and in Extreme mode, 2 lights will flash at a time, and you can only destroy them when they are lit. But in Zero Mission, only 1 light flashes at a time, and that's one of the reasons why one of our best runners, Poisson, hates this stage, because that mini-boss can be RNG incarnate. Never a fun thing. But now we're moving into Blast Hornet. Let's hope he does not spawn any bees, because the moment that the bees... the moment that the bees start to come after me, supposedly, is when they become solid, I guess you could say. Let's see if I can pull this off without having to die. Ooh, that was pretty close. Let's go. Good stuff. Nice Blast Hornet fight. And right now, we're looking pretty good in timing. Okay. Oh yeah, another fast text. Let's go. Yeah, this game's smiling at me a little bit, trying to make up for a little bit of the shenanigans that happened earlier. Yeah, that's pretty nice. But now we gotta go into Overdrive Ostrich's stage, and this is where the Ride Chaser comes in. This is where Ride Chaser gameplay becomes pretty weird as can be throughout the series, because I can only steer left and right. The movement of the Ride Chaser is automatic, so kind of like in Mega Man X4, X5, and actually those 2 games only, really, because I don't believe X6 had Ride Chaser gameplay, which... thank goodness for that, considering what happened with Squid Adler in X5, or Bolt Kraken, depending on your preferred translation. But, yeah, here we go. Oh, okay, that will not do. So, those sandstorm generators right there, they're instant kill. And if I touch them while they're emitting their thing, yeah, instant death, so no good. But using a series of damage boosts allow you to get through that quite nimbly and all that jazz. Now there are 2 ways to attack with the Ride Chaser. The first is by pressing the attack button, the other is by pressing up. And yeah, that's basically it. It's preferred that you do up because you'll still have a little bit of control over your Ride Chaser if you do it that way. Whereas I believe pressing the attack button sort of locks you into place a bit. But yeah. A quick noteworthy note. All the Maverick levels have armor capsules. 4 for X, 4 for Zero. X's Mavericks are the top layer, and Zero's Mavericks are the bottom. This is especially notable considering that in X Mission and Zero Mission, you only have those 4 Mavericks to fight throughout the entire campaign. So if you were to do an X mission run, you would only take on Neon Tiger, Bolt Catfish, Launch Octopus, and Flame Mammoth. In Zero mission, it's Overdrive Ostrich, Wire Sponge, Tunnel Rhino, and Blast Hornet. And then after those 4 Mavericks, you move into the late game stuff. But because we have all these big fellas to attend to, it's a lot more like an average Mega Man X run in that regard. Also, Extreme Mode is something that you actually do unlock by completing both X Mission and Zero Mission first, because Extreme Mode is something you don't have off a fresh save file or cartridge or whatever. So, yeah, that's all you really need to know about that. Actually, wait, there is a bit more detail to it too, though. See, you actually have this little thing where after beating X Mission or Zero Mission, whichever you choose, the game will ask if you want to save your data following the credits. And upon launching that save data, it now lets you start the other campaign with weapons that they don't normally get from their campaign. So if you're doing a Zero Mission campaign this way or an X Mission campaign this way, they get weapons that the other Mavericks would have given them. In Extreme Mode, on the other hand, only the hero that lands the final hit, on the boss, will get that weapon. So, in some cases, it's actually crucial to keep in mind who we defeat the boss as. I would say that we want Zero to have lightning from Wire Sponge. That is a given, because it's what will only allow us. It's only what allows us to get Zero Final. And that was very interesting pattern, by the way. Mammoth did nothing at all. But yeah. And in the 100% route, well, we do want X, or rather, any route rather, we are going to want X to get Neon Tiger's weapon, which we're going to go to his stage next. See, the thing about X's weapons is that they are what generally they are generally what causes a weakness reaction from the bosses, whereas Zero's techniques do not. And we don't normally worry about that, but in the case of our last Maverick, which will be Launch Octopus, he does not have a weakness reaction. Rather, he reacts to this weapon, oddly enough, but there's a good reason for it that I'll go into once we get into that fight. For now, Neon Tiger's stage here, I'm going to switch into X because I prefer to play as him and also give him this little life up right here, just for some extra safety whenever I do get to use him, because we've been mostly giving it to Zero, just because that's just how it goes. Oh, jeez. Well, that's a little unfortunate. Okay, I'll allow that. I will allow that. English is hard for me today, what the heck. Well, yeah, we're going to just press on right now. Not too much to talk about here. So I'm just going to let you enjoy this not cover of My Michelle by Guns N' Roses, because apparently that's what the composer must have been taking inspiration to when they originally made Neon Tiger's stage theme, I guess. Now, like with most X games, the Ride Armor does have its own health bar, which is not too bad, but of course, this game does not have something to show it for you. And also, the Ride Armor as well, when you're in it, it does negate any damage that you take. So, we don't do anything with it outside of this stage, but in this case, it's especially nice because it also prevents death by spikes. Which, you know, people don't quite like, myself included. It's never really fun. Okay, so now I have to... Okay, I had a feeling he was going to lunge. I have to finish him as X. There we go. So I'm going to now get Rayclaw for this, and this will be very helpful for a nice strategy used against Launch Octopus when we get to his boss chamber, or rather his boss fight. But yeah, so not much left in the main portion of the game. Once we get into the late portion, though, you're going to start to see me use a little bit of X and Zero, depending on what the situation calls for. I should, however, talk about DNA Souls, because I haven't really purchased anything in a while, and the reason is there are going to be some parts that I will want to get for later on, for the late game stages, and, well, most of them are going to be used for X, but we are going to try to get something for Zero as well. The caveat with the shop system is that while collecting DNA souls is as easy as getting those diamond-shaped, white circle-centered health and weapon refills, which means not all the health refills are DNA souls by technicality, but we also get the big ones from bosses that we defeat for the first time within a stage. The overall idea is that carts in the shop will not become available for purchase unless you have a certain amount of DNA souls in your wallet unspent. So that's sort of the catch-22 behind buying things. They're useful, yes, but later stuff needs us to get more DNA souls, and hopefully we'll have all that we need by then. Here comes the Utoboros, though. This is the other mini-boss that is within the game. The anglerge fishes are also within Xtreme 2 as well, but we completely ignore those, and the best part about that is they are located within separate routes of the stage, so because those bosses are typically annoying in X1, the fact that we don't have to bother at all with them is mwah, chef's kiss. Because, let me tell you, I hate those things in X1. I really do, with a passion. They're just no fun. But here comes Launch Octopus, and we're gonna make some calamari, as Focus Sight likes to say. Or rather, as Focus Sight had coined, and I like to use it ever since. So, what I just did there was, I caused Octopus's tentacles to break off as a result of using the Ray Claw, and this is sort of a nod to how the same thing happens in X1 if you use the Boomerang Cutter on him from Boomer Kawanger. So, it's a nice reference that Xtreme 2 also implemented, but it's also the only one that happens as well for some reason, because you can do the same sort of thing with the Boomerang Cutter on Launch Octopus, or Flame Mammoth to cut off his trunk, but they didn't do that here, so whatever. At least he can remind us that he is indeed an elephant. Okay, I'm going to not make any purchases yet. We're going to jump into the first of the final stages. And here we go. So, now we've entered the Reploid R&D factory here on the Goose Island. Dang it, okay. I was hoping to try and get that one from a long shot, but admittedly, a safety game over is not the worst thing at all. So we're just gonna take that on the chin, and oh, there we go. Yeah. So Zero's physics hitbox is slightly taller than X's, and that's the reason why I want to switch into X for that portion. It's just not fun getting pushed under that platform, just trying to make it across from the top, and then just losing a life to that. I used to call that Butterfingers whenever I didn't make it, because I was always thinking to myself it was just how I sort of failed the platforming there, but yeah, no, not quite the case. Not entirely the case anyway. I guess it can still happen, but like, yeah, I've learned a bit since then. I've been speedrunning, like I said, I can't English today, please forgive me on that one. I've been speedrunning this game though ever since 2020, and it's been quite a fun experience since then, and one that I still get a kick out of showcasing, because as I've mentioned, not a lot of people really know about this game, and it really means a lot to me as the very first Mega Man X game I have owned. Especially as, well, yeah, Spooter running. No, the boss spider is not in this game, thankfully. He is in Xtreme 1, but yeah, no, not to be found here. So that was Velgarder, Sigma's Wolfo, Doggo, whatever you want to call him. And for some reason, we had to fight him despite the fact that Sigma's not quite in this game. Because apparently that he's not the main villain. No, not at all. That honor actually goes to Burkana and Gareth. Still not quite finding what I need right now. I'm just gonna do one more stage, and then the spending will indeed happen for real. But you saw a cutscene, or a few cutscenes, where this witch-like and knight-like Reploid appeared. The knight one was Gareth, and the witch-like one was Burkana. Bracana is a former Reploid R&D scientist from here in Laguz Island, so technically the fortress is her former workplace. She became a little mad with power once she realized the potential that Reploid DNA can be used for making another Reploid stronger. And the whole circumstance behind X and Zero coming to Laguz Island is that there was this incident going on called the Erasure... Oh! X, are you kidding me? What was that? Alright, we're gonna try that again. And that was a bit of an accident. Now that's a pure Butterfingers moment right there. An accidental input that just cost me a life, but no big deal. Let's try that again. As I was about to say, no, game, please don't do this to me. Look, I'm trying my best here. Come on, stop sassing me or something like that. Okay. Man, I hate it when the game likes to do that. I just... Meh. Right, what was I about to say? So, Erasure Incident. Reploid DNA not only act as, well, their actual DNA, but they also act as their souls. Hence, the terminology of DNA souls coming into play with this game and also acting as the main currency of the part shop, which Iris then uses those DNA souls we collect from Mavericks to then make us the parts that we utilize within the game. So, Bracana realized, oh hey, I can use this to become strong and stuff, so I'm gonna go evil and whatnot, and that's why we're basically trying to put an end to her shenanigans. Also, she's a very rare case of a Mega Man X game having a female villain, or just a Mega Man game having a female villain on the whole. It's rarely ever seen, and while a lot of people like to make... Oh jeez, oh, I just had him too. While a lot of people like to make a little more accreditation to Farum from Mega Man X Command Mission, you know, it's just one of those things where Farum, being part of Command Mission, technically exists in what is a non-canonical side game. It's a cool game, don't get me wrong, I like Command Mission personally, and Farum is a cool character in my book, but in terms of being a written bad, like bad, evil, bad to the bone villainous, Bracana kinda did it first. So, nothing against all the Farum fans out there, even though I probably might have offended a few. But yeah, that's all I need to say, really. And it is a shame that Bracana never really did appear in Mega Man X Dive, which sadly the game is shutting down the main online gacha version come, this September, late September. But yeah, not much you can really do there. But thank goodness that Capcom is at least gracing us with an offline version, which will launch at the start of next month. So, hey, small victories where they count. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and equip those parts for X right there. And the pieces that I acquired are Buster Plus 1, Buster Plus 2, the Speed Shot, and Ultimate Buster. Now, I didn't necessarily need the Speed Shot. Rather, that was sort of an impulsive purchase right there. Very unintentional, but no big deal. And so now, we're going to see how this all comes into play very shortly. Alright, here we go. So, what I just did there, by the way, was I have entered Bracana's stage. And, well, Bracana, she is much faster than entering Gareth's stage. See, in X Mission, you are normally required to enter Bracana's level anyway, and if you are doing Zero Mission, you are normally required to enter Gareth's level by that point. But if you are playing Xtreme Mission, by the time the oh geez dialogue exchange happens, whichever character you're using at that moment will be the one to access the level instead. So that is why I wanted to be playing as X. By the way, any water waves from either Bracana or Gareth's stage that you see right there, just like that one that I nearly touched, those are automatically instant kill despite not having the coloration that Volt Catfish's stages had for when those were instant kill. So, yeah. Alright, so we are now going to face Bracana herself, and we do not like the alphabet because she likes to use it against us. She will either spawn A spheres or B spheres, depending on what she feels like doing. And this is important because, well, if I get hit by one of those, it will lock that button's functionality. So if I get hit by an A sphere, I can't jump for a while. If I get hit by a B sphere, I can't shoot for a while. And she will also turn the floor or wall into spikes. And that's especially bad because those will still instant kill X. But with the combined power of the Buster upgrades, she crumbles in no time. Also, her overall AI is much simpler than what it's like to fight Gareth. So, yeah, that's why we prefer to go for her. Gareth could potentially be faster, but again, he's more of an RNG heavy boss. We just don't bother. Oh, by the way, shout out to Isaz and Suilo, also known as the Sphinx Tank, which was a bit of a casual nightmare for a lot of players, myself included. Anyway, apparently Sigma was behind the whole plot anyway. He was apparently in cahoots with Bracana and Gareth. But he's also kind of thankful that Bracana was taken care of because apparently she went a little too far in his words. Funny for the man behind the Mavericks himself. But yeah, that was a little unfortunate. Oh well, we'll just try and do that again. But we are actually nearing time very shortly, and it's going to be at a very specific time. I'm going to call it in just a moment, but right now we actually have to enter the boss refight chamber. I'll enter this one for Flame Mammoth, and time. So that right there is the credit skip that I alluded to earlier before we started things off. And how that works is the Japanese version of the game has some strange programming where if you hit the exit button, which normally prevents you from exiting a level if it's one that you haven't completed yet, or in the case of the late game stages, you can't exit them at all. For some reason, the boss fight chambers, the boss refight chambers, are almost treated as if the game is thinking you're in their levels, but then apparently exiting the level means that the game almost thinks you've beaten this level, so it just has you go straight to the credits because there's really no other levels to be had after the fact. The US version does not quite seem to do this, although there had been a claim at one point that such was done by some person's casual playthrough. On top of that too, though, I forgot to bring up that Launch Octopus and Flame Mammoth stage themes get swapped in the Japanese version, whereas the worldwide version fixes this, so yeah. But that is the credit skip, and because we actually have a bit of a setup block coming up right after this run, I have a little bit of permission to showcase what would happen if we fight the final boss himself, which is Sigma. So we're going to go ahead and jump right back into the meat of things. And to do that, I'm going to reopen this autosave, which you actually get to see that in action. The important thing to note about autosaves is that they only occur whenever you hit a checkpoint from those little thin gray platforms, which I think Focus once referred to them as metal Oreos at one point, and I like that, so I also decided to use that if I ever remember to bring that up. But yeah. So any checkpoints that are activated by those platforms will count as ones that are auto-saved. Otherwise, if you see the screen flash, that's still technically a checkpoint, but one that I cannot return to via the continue screen. Alright, so once again, we're going to do round 2 with Bracana, and second verse same as the first, of course. So, let's go. But as I'm going through all the extra stuff and whatnot... Ooh, that's bad. Okay, so she just hit us with a B-sphere, and now I can't fire. And now she's trying to... Oh! Use Cyber Ice. That's very unfortunate. So, tragically, I have to start that stage again. And, yeah, we're gonna have to do that all over from the get-go. You know what? You hate to see it, but alas, sometimes these things happen. The good news is that one of the dialogues that happen in this level no longer happens on repeat run-throughs. But it's not this conversation, rather it's the one that happened when X entered Berkana's chamber for the first time. In other words, it's just that one screen of him saying, "I'm coming for you, Berkana," where Zero in Gareth's chamber at the very start has a little conversation with Iris. Oh wait, he's actually saying it now. Okay, well, I guess the reason for this is because I'm continuing off of an autosave, but had this not been the case, I think it would have been skipped. Take my word for it. I assure you that is indeed a thing. Okay, let's try to get through this. I don't know Japanese, for the record, but I do know that's what he says in the English script of the game, so... But if you are curious as to hearing the difference between the English and Japanese script, somebody does have a little online page where they went through the entire Japanese script and translated it to English by having it be a bit more faithful to said Japanese script. So, yeah, just look it up, and you should be able to find it in case you're wondering what the Japanese script does differently. Okay, cool. So, let's take this from the top. I can't believe I got sassed by Berkana, and I could have avoided that, but yeah, the Cyber Ice appears right above X, so it can be a bit hard to avoid if I put myself in a hard-to-avoid position. Right, yeah, I'm just gonna give myself a bit of a break because I've been talking a whole lot. But we do have a boss rush to take care of once she has done so. Alright, so I'm gonna grab some water really quick. I'll be right back. So the reason I bought an extra part for Zero is because right, sorry. The reason that I bought the extra part for Zero was that I was fully anticipating this true final boss showcase, and so in doing exactly that, I just figured it made the most sense. And that part was Saber +2, so now I'm going to be equipping that to Zero once we begin the boss rush. Of course, X is pretty handy with his souped-up Buster as well right now, but if this were a Xtreme 100% run, what we would actually be doing is we would have gotten the Shotokan parts, which, much like with Mega Man X1 and X2, X, once he grabs, once he and or Zero, or yeah, once both characters have grabbed all of the collectibles within all of the Maverick stages, after having done so, the Shotokan capsule opens up in Berkana's level, and that allows X the Hadouken and the Shoryuken. The thing is that they've taken a bit of a nerf in how much damage they can do, but for Maverick bosses, they do deal half the amount of HP, which Maverick health bars are 32 total. So a single Hadouken or Shoryuken landed is 16, which is really good. But in the case of how to use them, X does not have to be at full health, which is again much more convenient. All he really needs to do, that was Fish Fang, by the way, that was an accidental usage, is he has to hold a charge shot, and then you have to either hold up or down and then release to use the move. The problem is that the Shotokan capsule itself is located in Berkana's level only, so that's another reason we prefer to go to Berkana as opposed to Gareth, because especially in a 100% run, it has to be done. Alright, that was a much better wire sponge. And one of the reasons I saved Zero Final for it as well. We don't really need Zero Final because it's not going to do anything to Sigma once we get to him. Extreme mode, by the way, has quite a few small but notable differences in the overall gameplay, where the reason I did a series of damage boosts on the hot floor in Flame Mammoth stage is that those fireballs, specifically in extreme mode, I don't know why they are programmed to do this, but they instant kill you, so obviously I don't want to have to deal with that. But the bosses also have a bit of extra AI during their fights, as well as a move that you wouldn't normally see otherwise. In the case of Wire Sponge, though, his strike chain deals damage to you both from the chain and the tip, whereas only the tip deals damage during a zero mode run-through. That little sound effect you just heard was me filling up the sub-tank, by the way. And in Mega Man Xtreme 2, there are a total of 2 sub-tanks and 8 life-ups. Similar to boss weapons in this game, the person that collects the life-up will solely be the one who gets the health upgrade, not both of them, so... a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Okay, come on, Tiger. Another fun fact about this game is that both the characters have a different parts limit to them. X can hold up to 4 parts, Zero can hold up to 3 parts, and when X gets his full suit of armor, that suddenly gets cut in half. Not sure why it does. It's a bit unfortunate that way because the full armor itself is actually a nice little mix and match of a few abilities from X's 1 to 3, but also is the X2 armor in terms of its physical appearance, and that's about it. And yeah. Okay, so, a quick flashing warning. So, this is what we would normally skip with the credits skip, or the credits warp, but once we get to Phase 2 of the boss fight, there's going to be a lot of flashing whenever he takes damage, period. Like, any damage he takes is going to involve that violent amount of flashing, so... again, sensitivity warning here once we get to that second phase, but for now, that was a bit of a tragic death. See, Neo Sigma making his return from Mega Man X2 and donning his little Wolverine cosplay, he's weaker to air dash slashing. Not sure why that is, but yeah. And I imagine the reason that they use flashing in this game is because, I don't know, Game Boy Color limitations, whatever the case. Alright, so, here comes Sigma Beast, and at the moment, he's only vulnerable to X's attacks. And the only way X can hit him, or hit the Beast body, is if he's using a charge shot. And that is the very reason why we get the Ultimate Buster, because it turns all of his shots into automatic charge shots. So it makes the fight a lot smoother that way. But soon, he will probably go into a Phase 2, where he starts to change color. If that is indeed the case, you will see him either turn blue or red, and only X or Zero can start to damage the Beast body that way. And it's red, so I'm gonna have to now use Zero. I mean, I do imagine Zero can potentially hit him in the first color phase and all that, but like, it's not easy. And he is pulling off some very dastardly moves right now as well. Okay, that is a little tragic. I will try to beat him one more time. But, unfortunately, even with a full sub-tank, yeah, I decided to use it on X because I thought he was going to change into X's color. The nice thing about Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Sigma is that your health does fully recover automatically between those phases, but yeah. Alright, let's finish this for real. Hopefully, anyway. This is unfortunate because I'm pretty sure he is invulnerable during that attack. Yeah, that's an annoying one for sure. Oh wait, never mind, he's not invulnerable. And yeah, okay, so Zero can hit him, it's just that precise aiming that makes it a bit of a pain to do. And that's it. There we go. That right there is true Sigma or Sigma Beast. That is the final boss of the game. And if you were doing X mission or Zero mission, the game stops you at either Berkana or Gareth. So, yeah, that's it. That's Mega Man Xtreme 2's Extreme Mode. And I just want to say thank you to Emerald Alley and, of course, just the Fleet Fest community for allowing me to show this thing off. And, yeah, no, this game is fantastic. I do hope that Capcom one of these days makes a modern port, because this was available for purchase on the Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console series, but sadly with the eShop no longer accepting new purchases, that's no longer possible. But maybe a Hidden Gems collection featuring this and the Game Boy Mega Man classic games, and hopefully the Super Nintendo version of Mega Man and Bass. That would be pretty nice. Of course, whenever you're ready for a Capcom, because I know you just did Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, and trust me, it is wonderful to revisit my nostalgia there. But aside from that, if you would like to learn a Mega Man X speedrun, our Discord server is accessible. You can find our link on the Mega Man RT leaderboards, which has a page featuring all the community links. So if you want to also join the Classic, Battle Network, Zero, and ZX communities, you can find those there as well. And just a major shout out to the Handheld crew overall, as well as every runner that has done this game before and after me. But now, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and pass it on over to the next runner, and you will be seeing me finish things off, or at least what is next on my repertoire, on early Sunday afternoon. So I hope you guys tune in. And with that, this is TempestMask1000 signing off. Ciao, amici.
Thank you so much for that run, and we definitely look forward to seeing you again on Sunday. It's always a good time with you.
Definitely look forward to